Very excited to have Milo Werner, general partner at MIT's The Engine. Milo, I'm gonna let you take it away. Thank you.
Cool. Hi, all. I'm thrilled to be here. SOSV is awesome. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to start off. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the engine, and then we'll get to some general Q&A. So the engine, built by MIT, was launched in order to accelerate the path for tough tech founders through a combination of infrastructure, network, and capital. It consists of the Engine's Public Benefit Corporation, which provides tough tech space and services in the ecosystem, as well as the Engine Fund, which invests in early stage tough tech founders. The two work in partnership, creating a stronger amplification of the mission together. I joined the Engine 18 months ago. I spent 8 years at Tesla. I ran new product introduction for Tesla. It was a wild experience from launching the Model S powertrain to dual motor to driver's assist, the European facility, and culminating in Model X. It was just unbelievable. And so I really have a kind of a firsthand knowledge of how hard it is to launch into production, how hard it is to build physical things. After Tesla, I went to Fitbit. I spent 2 years there. I launched 4 factories for them in China. When I started, we were in facilities doing total manual assembly. And as we came out, we were in full automation. It was just an amazing, amazing experience. I had a few other roles between there before I moved into investing. And I've really never looked back. So a little bit more about tough tech. You hear us talk about tough tech at the Engine. And the way we think about tough tech, it is transformative technology that solves the world's most important challenges through the convergence of breakthrough science, engineering, and leadership. And when we think about transformative technology, this is what we're talking about when we say tough tech. It's cutting edge science and technology that has the potential to change the trajectory of society. It's going to change the way we live our lives in the future. When we talk about science and engineering, that's what unifies tough tech in the physical space. It's not just code. It has the potential to create and move sustainable, resilient ways. And finally, when we think about leadership, we're thinking about technical founders who have spent usually a pretty long time working on this transformative science and engineering, and now they're moving on as leaders, building companies, becoming business leaders, and that transformation is often not super easy and not intuitive, and we try and be their partner, helping them make this transition. Okay, so just thinking about diving in a little bit deeper here, thinking about what our core ingredients are at the Engine, how we think about building companies. The first step is helping founders translate out of the lab. And we run 2 core programs there for founders to really engage with us on. One's called Blueprint, which runs twice a year. It's 5-session, half-day sessions. And we go over kind of the core ingredients for postdocs, doctoral students who are working in the lab on what it takes to build a company. Everything from thinking about product market fit, to commercialization, to talking about how much money you should raise, who would potential investors be. We also run a program called Whiteboard, which is for PIs, academic leaders who are running labs, who are maybe developing these technology, and how they think about commercializing tech. Do they have to leave their lab to start these companies? Can they still be a founder? Can they still participate in the day-to-day, week-to-week activities at the company that they've essentially founded? Then when we think about tough tech leadership, kind of the CEO and executive roles, we spend a lot of time working with founders, pairing them up with advisors. We run a founders program for early stage company where the founders get together once a month for lunch, kind of talk about similar challenges that they've been having, just have a peer group that you can relate to. And then we also run some pretty extensive community, founder community programming It includes everything from financial modeling to storytelling to pitching to meeting investors, product market fit, talking to strategics. It's pretty wide. And so then let's talk about the network that we build around the Engine community. We're running the summit in a couple of days where we invite many CEOs in the tough tech community, not just the ones within our portfolio, but the ones outside of our portfolio, to come together and think about how do you build a tough tech company? What does that look like? We have numerous days throughout the year where we invite strategics and corporations to come in and engage with the portfolio. And then we also have a pretty extensive government programming and policy advocacy group that works with you to make sure you understand, what's happening on the federal and the state level, how does it impact you, and is there any way that you can provide feedback through the government to try and get adjustments. Okay, and then when we talk about influence and capital, we're thinking about how do you think about structuring your corporate governance? What does your board look like? And how do you build your capital stack? Is it all equity? Are you applying for non-dilutive funding? Are you thinking about venture debt or other debt facilities? So those are kind of like all the pieces there. And then we've probably left off the most important part, which is we run 200,000 square feet of space that is meant to really make building a company light lift. We have makerspace, we have chem labs, we have bio labs, we have benches, we have desks, kind of like whatever you need, and it all runs on a month-to-month basis. So we really invite you to come in person to be a part of the Engine. Okay. A little bit more about our portfolio. We have 52 companies in the portfolio. We have 2 funds that we're investing out of, and of the probably around $400 million that we've invested, our portfolio has syndicated $4.7 billion. And so that really means that companies that come into our portfolio have been incredibly successful at growing, which is just exciting. It's really exciting. These companies have over 2,500 employees, and they have offices around the United States. Some common questions that people ask us is, do you have to be connected to MIT to be invested in by the Engine? No, we have many companies that don't have MIT connections within our portfolio. What other questions could I ask? We usually invest very early stage, kind of first money in, pre-seed, seed, and a little bit of Series A, but usually we really like to get involved very early. And then finally, I would say just like tough tech is becoming really real for us. I think you may have read about some of the companies that we've backed at the Engine, and many of them are doing really amazing. We talk about Commonwealth Fusion. They've raised over $2 billion. They are building a massive facility out in Devens, Massachusetts, where they're demonstrating fusion. The facility is called Spark. They also have a magnet production facility that they're building there, where they have started serial production of magnets. So that's really exciting. When we think about Lilac Solutions, lithium extraction, they are building their big production technology facility in Fernley, Nevada. That's underway. They got a $50 million grant from the federal government to build that facility. Form Energy is also in our portfolio. They're building a $760 million facility, iron air long duration storage in West Virginia at an old steel facility. We're really just over the moon excited for them. And there's just countless other ones. Okay, so maybe the last thing I'll say, and then maybe we can dive into questions, is what do we look for in teams? What do we think about when we make an investment? And the number one thing for us is we're looking for companies solving big problems, addressing big opportunities. There are 3 main verticals that we invest across: human health and ag, climate, and advanced systems. Advanced systems is advanced manufacturing, robotics, compute, AI. And so we look for for companies that are really transforming those industries. We also invest in companies that have very deep tech. So we look for kind of like a big IP moat, something that is going to really shift the tables on how the industry operates, make them rethink like how is business done. And then finally, we look for amazing founders that are just inspiring, excited, ready to go out and charge. We just really embrace that. Many of our founders are very technical, doctoral, postdoctoral experience. And so we definitely welcome technical founders. Okay. Okay, so then from there, I'm going to go to the Q&A. And people need to upvote. I can't tell if people are upvoting here or not. I do see some upvoting here. Okay. Okay, so first question here is, do we invest outside of Boston? I kind of answered this earlier, but yes, for sure. We have investments in California, Texas, Michigan, pretty much all over the country. We look all over and we welcome, everyone to come and be a part of the engine. Okay. Are Canada deep tech startups eligible? We definitely look at international companies. We look at Canada. We spend a fair amount of time in Europe. We haven't actually made any international investments yet, but we definitely look at those. Okay, there were a couple questions about non-US based. Boston. Okay, does Blueprint accept members that had already started their company or only researchers before starting? For sure, you can have started your company and join Blueprint. It's an application-based process, and we usually get hundreds of applicants, and we try and get it down to like 150 members in each Blueprint session. Typically, you'll be broken into groups of probably 8 to 10 people per group, and you'll meet with someone at the engine staff who will run each session for you. And it'll be specific to something that they're knowledgeable on, and you'll also learn from your peers during that session. Okay, looking in through here a little bit more. I'm seeing some upvoting. Sorry that I'm reading. Okay, does the engine invest in solo founders? For sure we do. I think we have many solo founder investments. We also invest in teams. We had a team come out of the Quantum Lab last year that had 6 founding members. So we invest in big teams, but we're also happy to invest in single founders. If you work with us, you'll realize that we also spend a lot of time helping you meet. They might not be co-founders, but typically single founders that we see are coming out of the lab, coming out of a postdoc, and maybe they haven't met a lot of people in industry that they feel like could be their long-term partner. And so we spend a considerable amount of time helping you to meet people in the industry who would join your company, who would bring some industry knowledge, but are excited to work for kind of a disruptive, innovative company. Okay, moving on here. Do any of the climate tech startups that you invest in struggle to hire and retain qualified employees? Either, I'm getting here to more, either managerial or technical talent. How do they overcome shortages in the climate tech workforce? One thing that we have found that's been very transformative for companies in our portfolio is helping them to tell their story in a way that speaks to everyone, not only from the investment side, but also from potential employees, recruits, and partner companies. And so when you find that way to think about, when you find that way to speak to those kind of people outside of your company, we found that really breaks down barriers in recruiting, helping to tell your story in a way that everybody can identify with. it's not uncommon for founders to come to us and tell us an incredibly technical story about how they've spent the past 6 years really innovating in a very specific space. They've been living and breathing it, and helping them take a step back to think about, why does that matter? How do you speak to people who are not as technical? How do you think about telling your story in a way that addresses kind of the broader world? We find that can really help with recruiting. Okay, scrolling to more questions. Which part of your investment process and business building process would you like to improve? Ooh, that's a tough question. I mean, I think one area that we're working to improve is like our companies cover a very, very wide spread of technologies, and we get an immense amount of interest from strategic partners wanting to engage with us. And I think one area that I'd love to see us kind of like dive in a little bit more is helping to kind of group those strategics and help them communicate better with companies in our portfolio. I think a lot of times we do one-off introductions, like here, meet Chevron, meet BP. But I think that there's a lot of value gained in when you work with them together. So that might be one of my pieces that I would say. Frequently we find early stage startups, it's best for them to partner with strategics, but not necessarily always take investments from them. So navigating that path is pretty important when you have strategics engaging with early stage companies, thinking about, when is the best time to do a partnership? When is the best time to take investment? And it could just be complicated, and it's different for every company. Okay, moving on here. What's the best way to connect with you to explore opportunities? I would say, I think my email's probably posted somewhere, but it's milo@engine.xyz. Reading on here, hold on. There's a lot of questions on this list. What TRL stage are programs you mentioned are needed? When we think about technology and how mature it is before we invest in it, we invest pretty early. Typically, we look for some kind of outside validation that the technology has been validated on the academic scale. That might come from a peer-reviewed published article. It might come from an outside expert in the industry. It might come from a speaking engagement at a notable conference. We usually look for some kind of outside engagement. So when we think about maturity of the tech, not only do we want to see it perform at the bench scale, but we also like to have some kind of outside validation that it's recognized. Isn't always the case, but it's not uncommon. Ooh, someone asked me, can I share the Tesla production process? It's only like 5,000 steps. Maybe you were asking, can I share the Tesla new product introduction process? That I don't know if I could share that on this in such a short time. Maybe we'll hold off on that. Okay, I got some other questions here. Okay, so this is a good question. It seems like you are heavily focused on advanced specialist technologies. Do you always invest in companies that are more combining higher TRL technologies in new ways instead of advancing specific technologies? It's a great question. We definitely look at companies that are doing both. So not only will we invest in companies where we feel like there's been a single technology breakthrough that's really transformative, but we also look at companies that are integrating maybe technologies that are already in use together in new and innovative ways. I think where we draw the line is we don't invest in business model innovation. So if you came to us and said, there are these solar panels and now I'm going to put them on the top of cars and they're going to power cars, I think that's kind of, that for us is too much a business model innovation. I think we're looking for kind of, we definitely look at companies that have advanced systems is kind of what we call them. And the advanced systems may combine technologies that are already in use in other parts of the industry. Okay. You guys have to upvote. Keep upvoting. If you're not upvoting, I'm not knowing which questions to answer. Okay, somebody asked, can you describe the tech to market support you provide to startups? Yep. There are a couple different ways that this happens, and obviously there's a lot of different tech that goes to market. Maybe I'll focus a little bit more on the industrial side than other areas, kind of industrial processes, which is really my area of expertise. We typically do a couple things. One area that we look at is how much traction are you getting in the market? Are potential customers interested in buying your product? And that can be done through two different ways. You could think about it in a way of, can you develop a partnership? You could also think of it in a way of, do companies want to buy the material or the things that you're producing? Partnership is where your system might be too expensive for you to individually develop at this stage. And so maybe a partnership would be they build, you in collaboration with another company build a demonstration facility. And then in the part of selling your product to companies, potentially you have a unique metal that you're selling to customers, maybe Apple, maybe a large steel company. So I think we think about those two pieces, and then we kind of break it down to like, who are the industry leaders, who are the second, kind of in the industry leading. Often we find that the people are kind of not the top of the production, but kind of like second down or more hungry to try new and innovative ways. And usually we have ways to reach those companies. Either they've reached out to us, or we know people at them, and we get you engaged and we help you kind of navigate how that relationship works. And it doesn't always work out the first time. Sometimes the type of relationship they're looking for isn't a relationship that the startup is interested in. Other times it is. And so a little bit of it is trial and error, and we help you kind of work through that trial and error process. Okay, we got more questions coming through. Some are very specific. I'm not going to answer the specific ones right now. You can write me an email about those. Have you explored the impact of space weather as it relates to climate change? We haven't done that yet, so it's exciting. Oh, someone asked what size of our checks. Checks for us are anywhere from a couple $100,000 to over 5 million. So pretty wide range of checks for us. And that's first check, and then we're happy to follow on. Okay, what else we got here? Where are we going here? Just reading questions. I keep coming back to this. Okay, here we go. Okay, we're at the top here. Ooh, how do you help startups find effective IP counsel? That's a really tough one. I don't think we find it that tough. There's two ways to go about this. There's some core firms that work with startups a lot, and they deal with a lot of different kinds of IP. We found that to be pretty successful. But we also have found successful, there are definitely like IP counsel that are very specific to industry. And depending on the industry that you're in, you may find it more effective opposed to going to a generalized firm to work with kind of a focused IP advisor. There's definitely some interesting people out there that I'd totally recommend. Okay, here's one. I presume that tough tech also includes first of a kind projects. People call it folk, maybe. What's the engine's approach for investing in folk projects? And what obstacles do you and other investors face when investing in these projects? I think we have seen for sure hesitancy from investors, later stage investors, investing in first of a kind projects. Kind of the way we've worked around that is through the IRA and the CHIPS Act. We've seen a lot of capital come through for supporting kind of these first of a kind projects. It still takes collaboration from financial investors. And we spent a lot of time with companies building out the capital stack, thinking about how to fund these projects. We've seen advanced payments from strategics. We've seen strategic collaboration on putting capital into these companies, offtake agreements. So we've been tried to be pretty robust on that, because for sure a lot of our companies are building first of kind projects, and all that capital will not come from financial investors. So that's definitely something we spend a lot of time on. Here's an anonymous question. What equity range should a company plan for in your seed funding round? I'm just going to talk generally. Typically, we see companies selling between 20 and 30% of their company in the seed round. I'm not saying that's always the case for us, but I think we're pretty in market. Someone asked, what is the emissions reduction objective for the engine as per your vision? I think unlike some other funds, we are not going to ask you to justify how much CO2 reduction impact you're going to have. Many of our companies are so early that it's actually just really hard to quantify that. What we're looking for is that your technology has a path to transforming the way the industry works. That could be in the way that they mine, rare earth metals, that it is transformative. And I think like in that example, we definitely see a lot of, mining technology companies come through, and it's pretty hard to quantify what the CO2 impact will be. Are you going to claim the CO2 impact will be that of the adoption of electric vehicles? How fast? So I think for a lot of investments that we make, we want you to have an impact, but we're not looking for you to quantify what that impact would be. I think, where else are we at? Do we invest in water desalination projects? We only invest in tech. So if it's tech, we're interested in it. If it's just a water desalination project, probably not. Okay, with that, I see that Hugh has joined.
Milo, thank you so much. That was an awesome session, and thank you so much to the audience. Those were some really good questions. And Milo, you handled them excellently as well. We're going to wrap this session up. Milo, thank you so much again. Thank you to the audience, and please keep enjoying the summit.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.